Tonight I'm sleeping in this forest. There's no tent, there's no swag, there's no bedding, there's no sleeping bag. It's just me and what I'm wearing. I've got this phone simply because I want to record it. And I'm doing all this for a reward. Now you might be wondering, well, what on earth is the reward? You know, there's a practice in Japan called misogi, which is a sort of a purification thing that they do. They'll, you know, go semi-naked under waterfalls, etc. But this has been sort of adopted in the West, as so often happens from things from Asia. And the idea is that you would do one thing once a year that would be so sort of hard that would have an impact on everything you do for the entire year. So I've decided to sleep in the forest, and literally what I'm wearing, which as you can see, I've got some shoes and tracksuit pants and this coat, that's it. I don't have any food, I don't have any drink. And I've read some of the US sports people who've done this kind of thing, and they say it needs to be something so difficult that your odds of success is 50-50. Now, I can tell you for me that there is accommodation about 1 kilometre away. So in the middle of the night, if I get freaked out or whatever, if I walk back before dawn, then I guess that's a fail. And if I survive here until dawn, then that's a win. The first thing that I notice is how quiet everything is here. I mean, I can hear some birds in the background, but that's about it. There's barely a peep. Now, fortunately, it's reasonably clear, and so maybe I'll get some moonlight tonight. But for the moment, it's all very quiet. There's some light, although you can probably tell the sun's going down. And perhaps I'm going to come across some nocturnal animals. We'll see. Here's where I think I'll sleep. I'll show you the view that I'm looking at. Not bad, eh? With only a little bit of daylight left, it certainly sharpens the senses. I've been for a little bit of a walk around to see what's around here. I've seen a kangaroo, I've seen a fox. I've also noticed a few ants and a few mosquitoes, so perhaps I'm going to have to cope with them during the night. Don't know if you can see that, but I decided to grab a bit of shelter. There was a tree fallen down over there, and I sort of snapped some branches off the end that have got leaves. I just thought, well, what if I get cold in the middle of the night? I tell you what, it focuses the attention. My bed has suddenly become a very high priority. Rather than thinking about a million other things and just taking bed for granted, suddenly this is my highest priority. Well, that is a spot of good luck. Now, the truth is, this event's been on my calendar for several weeks, so I had no idea what the moon was going to do or the weather or anything, but that full moon there is going to make things a lot easier. All right, well, I've been lying down for an hour, and main findings so far is the bed's reasonably comfortable, although I've obviously failed to go to sleep. It is quite cold. It's only meant to be getting to 12 tonight, and I've got a big, thick jacket on, but I am feeling cold lying on the ground. Maybe there's a bit of cold coming up from the ground. What is that sound? All your other senses are largely negated or switched off, but it's the sounds that you hear a sound and you go, oh, what's that? What's that? That's probably the hardest part. I'm going to try and find something warmer, maybe some twigs or something. I hope I can get some sleep. Otherwise, only 7 hours till the sun comes up. So it's 3:15 in the morning. I've spent the past 5 hours trying to get some sleep. I've been out here for about 6.5, I guess. And yeah, it definitely hasn't worked. Well, it's finally the next morning of my little misogi experiment. And I've got to say it was a pretty tough night, but I made it. My goal was to survive a night in the bush, in the forest, and I successfully did that. But there are a lot of lessons that have come from this as the sun, I guess, is slowly starting to come up. The first is this was my initial bed there, which was just some, I guess, moss. And it was really only as the sun was starting to go down, I thought, oh, what if it gets a bit cold? I might go and grab some branches which I could sleep on. And then, indeed, it did get cold. Now, the forecast overnight was that the low would be 12 degrees. The actual low was 9 degrees. And that was probably one of the other lessons from this thing, which is that, you know, sometimes the goalposts change as you're going. The truth is, the second part is that I was badly prepared. I've got this big red coat, and this red coat was not warm enough. I've got tracksuit pants and sneakers on, and that was not warm enough either. So during the night, believe it or not, I had 8 different attempts at making a bed that was going to keep me warm. Now, I realised fairly quickly that lying on that sort of moss alone was not going to be enough. So I came across this area here under some pine trees, and I was able to grab the pine branches to sort of make a bed to lie on, and that helped. And I lay on top of that for a while, then realised that wasn't going to be warm enough. So I grabbed some more pine branches and actually lay them on top of me like a sort of a blanket. I also had a real struggle with anything resembling a pillow, and I happened to find a plastic bag. And I filled the plastic bag with pine needles, and that made quite a good pillow. The only problem was, even lying on top of those branches and having the other branches on top of me, I was still very cold. Now, as I tried to go to sleep, 3 things were happening. The first was there was quite a lot of mosquitoes, and luckily I had a handkerchief. I usually do carry one, and so I put that over my face, and this thing's got a hood, and so that sort of defeated the mozzies. And then the noises in the forest, they're actually quite unnerving. And I was constantly going, what's that, what's that, what's that? And eventually I just got sick of it, and I just, well, you know, it is what it is, just sort of deal with it. But the one thing that absolutely defeated me was the cold. And in fact, it's now not even 6 a.m. and I've done more than 8,000 steps since midnight just trying to stay warm. But bottom line, I survived, and I've learned some very interesting lessons. And the whole point of this Misogi exercise is that you do something that's really hard, but that it's something that will have an impact on everything else you do for the year. So as for me, I'm going to get warm and I'm going for some sleep. See you next time.